Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. It's so great to have everyone here in this cozy office space that we have on this blistering evening outside. And what better way to celebrate a nice, snowy, wintry day than to do some editing in Lightroom. I have been really anxious to go over these two new features in Adobe Lightroom, the Select Subject and Select Sky masking tool. They have been tools that I've been using a lot in our own work. So tonight I will go over a few of our favorite photos from a recent trip to Iceland and show you how I use the Select Subject and the Select Sky masking tools in all four of those photos. So without further ado, let's dive right into Adobe Lightroom and get this party started. Okay everyone, so the first thing we are going to do is look at a few of these photos that we took in Iceland. The first one we have our Icelandic horse, so majestic he or she is. That is the edited version. This is the raw image straight out of camera. So we're gonna start with doing some edits to this. And then we are going to take a few photos from Skogafoss, one of the most famous waterfalls in Iceland. And we are gonna edit a few features with the Select Subject tool. And then we will round it out with a favorite of mine from Vestrahorn, one of the most iconic spots in Iceland. So let's bring up our horse. Let's call him Phil for the sake of argument today. And Phil is just grazing in the grass, and we want Phil to pop. So before these features existed, I would just go into my slider panel and I would start to adjust the features here. So I might bring my shadows up so we can really try to bring the details out in Phil. The highlights in the sky are actually pretty well exposed. I don't need to bring those down too much. And maybe I want to bring the exposure up and start really playing with, you know, the tone and the color and that kind of thing. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm gonna reset this. And instead, I'm gonna go up in here to my masking parameters. And I'm gonna click that. And you will see that there are two of these new mask properties. We have the Select Subject property and we have Select Sky. So for the sake of this specific image, we are gonna select our subject. So all you're gonna do is press Select Subject. And literally within seconds, I'm gonna open this because I was already kind of messing around with this. I'm gonna show overlay so that I can see that mask that was actually added to my subject. And honestly, it did a really, really great job. You can see that other than a few of the spots in between the hooves and the legs, around the tail, you know, the intelligence in Lightroom has gotten so good that it can actually pull that subject out. And, you know, I picked a pretty simple image where that subject was, you know, pretty obviously in the center of the foreground. So it's a little bit easier to pull out. But if you wanted a different, let's say you wanted a different masking color, you can come in here, you can adjust, you know, any color you want. If you want like maybe yellow, because you can see it better, you can change it to whatever. I like red just because I can see that on the on the blue background. And then if you wanted a different alternative, you have these three dots here. You can, rather than a color overlay, you can change your image to black and white. So this actually allows you to see more easily where that mask missed. So what I wanna do is I wanna actually paint that out so that I can make sure that the only thing that is being edited is the horse itself. So what I'll do is I'll click on my subject and I'm gonna go to subtract. And when I click subtract, I get all of these other options. So I'm gonna press brush. I'm gonna come in here with my brush and I have my flow set to 100. And I'm gonna come in here and I'm just gonna brush that away. And now I can make sure that, you know, anything that is in this mask is indeed the subject and it's being affected. And then again, you have your image on black. You can really set this however you want, image on white. And then here you can kind of see that a lot of that mask was feathered. So maybe I want to come in here and add that mask back in. So all I'm going to do is come back into my subject. We're going to add the add tool. I'm going to add brush. And now I'm going to brush anything back in that is part of that subject that Lightroom, you know, might have missed. And I mean, really, they do a pretty good job, but there's a lot of that feathering that, you know, to be extra specific, you might just want to go in there and adjust it manually. And all of these overlay modes allow you to see the mask a little bit more clearly. And with that, I'm feeling pretty good. So let's go back to color overlay. Okay, and let's just turn our overlay off. So right now, I haven't made any adjustments, any edits whatsoever on this horse, said Phil. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna start just playing around with some of these features. So now my exposure, just like you would do in the previous versions of Lightroom, whatever mask you added, those edits only affect that mask. And in this case, my mask is Phil, our horse. Sorry for anyone out there named Phil, but that's just the name I was thinking of. Okay, so we're gonna come in here. Maybe we wanna adjust the highlights a little bit. Maybe we wanna bring some contrast into our horse and bring the blacks down. And let's bring the shadows up a little bit. Okay, now if we wanted to take the sky and adjust the sky, maybe we wanted to tone the blues down, maybe we wanted to warm them up, rather than having to paint our mask around the horse here, we can come back into our masking parameters. It is pretty insane. And we can create new mask, and we're gonna select the sky. And now you can see that Lightroom did an incredible job just selecting the sky here. Even around the grass and all of these spots, it kind of nailed it. So this is another way that you can actually select the subject. If you don't feel like selecting the subject, you can actually invert this. So if I invert it right here where it says select sky, I've now, in essence, selected the opposite of the sky, which is our horse. In this case, it actually gets the foreground too, which we didn't really want to change. So we'll turn that off. And let's go ahead and name these. So you can actually name your mask. So if you right click, you rename it. We're gonna call this sky. And we're gonna call this Phil. Good old Phil. All right, and now our sky, we have that selected. We can do a number of things. We can do all the same sort of editing that we've done in Lightroom previously, but now we have the sky selected in a much easier way than before. So we can come into our highlights, we can adjust our highlights, bring those up. We can maybe cool the sky down. So maybe we want it to be a little bit more of that like Iceland mood. Let's take that saturation down a bit and let's make it kind of moody. Let's take the clarity and let's turn the clarity down and let's soften the background. And I like to do this because it does give you a little more separation between the subject and the background. Okay, so those two properties were what we had done here with our horse. Again, I had already messed around with some additional properties, and this was the final image of what I came up with. I think I could, continue to tweak this, but if you look at my mask properties, I did the exact same thing. I masked my subject, so we show that overlay. I masked the background or the subject, I inverted it, and then I added an additional mask just around his eye. So let's take a look at a couple of these other photos here and see how we can use this masking tool in a different way. So all these photos are from Iceland. I'm obsessed and I can't stop going through my catalog of Iceland photos. So we're just picking from a few of our favorites. All right, so this is a shot of Anna standing in front of Skogafoss, I believe it's Skogafoss. And really what I wanna do is just bring the brightness of her jacket up without affecting the entire background of the image, because I do feel like it's exposed fairly well. And maybe what I wanna do is take her hat, it was a red hat, and like make that pop a little bit more so that it stands out on the waterfall. So same thing, we're gonna go into our masking properties and we are going to select the, let's select the subject, okay? And again, because there's no other subject around, Lightroom did a near perfect job. And how we would check that, once again, is we'd go down here, let's try image on white. And you can see it did a pretty good job. I'm gonna actually do image on black because I wanna see her hands. I wanna see how much of that jacket was actually added. And what I'm gonna do is go back to image on white, and I'm going to add a brush like I did on the horse. And I'm gonna just come in here and I'm gonna take the size of my brush and I'm gonna just paint some of her back in. So I make sure that, all that's being affected here when I brighten this image is Anna. Okay, so we're gonna add this again. And, you know, specifically around here, around her boots, because you don't want to get that lost down there. And I can zoom in, you know, and just get super detailed here. You know, and you can see the closer you get and the more zoomed in you get, the more you know, have to fix. But it's really a much easier way to edit these subjects and the backgrounds than it was previously before these features existed. All right, so just for the sake of that, that looks pretty good. And we're gonna go back into our mask and go to our color overlay, because that's one that I like. We're gonna turn this off. And now, really all we need to do is adjust our exposure a little bit. We wanna maybe bring the highlights up. And maybe what we want to do is adjust the jacket first, and then we want to adjust the hat. So what I would do is actually add another mask, and I would create that same mask, and in that mask, I would create a select subject, and I would actually rename that mask to the hat. Okay. And then this is maybe the jacket, so that we're being super specific on what we're adjusting. And in this case, what I would do is, in order to make this just the hat, I would go in and I would subtract with a brush the rest of her. So I'm coming in here and now I'm painting everything else that I don't want. And I just want to adjust the color of the hat. Right, so we're coming in here, and now, you know, just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm kind of going around her hair there. And now what I can do is I can change the saturation. You know, I'm bringing that up, but it doesn't see like it doesn't recognize a lot of that red color. So I'm gonna bring the exposure up a little bit to really try to make that pop, bring the highlights up, bring some of those whites up. And now we're getting somewhere. We got the jacket a little brighter and we got the hat. And just from a before and after standpoint, you know, very subtle without even touching any other features in this image. So from this point, I could come out of my masks and I can continue to, you know, edit this image the way that I want. I could bring my blacks down. I can, you know, bring the shadows up, and I can do a whole number of my adjustments after I've added these masks. So the great thing about these features is it's a perfect starting point. Sometimes all you need to use is the select subject and the select sky tool. So let's go to the last one here in this tutorial, and let's show you how we can adjust the sky. All right, so we're coming in here. Again, this is a spot in Iceland called Vestrahorn on the eastern part of the country, an absolutely beautiful black beach. So let's say all we want to do is bring that sky down, and we don't want to affect the actual mountains in the foreground. We're gonna come in here and select the sky. Boom, okay, it did an amazing job. And I want to turn this bluer. I want to bring the exposure down just to show you like the intensity of what you can be working with here. And it's starting to, you know, all that detail is in the sky, and with basically the click of one button, I was able to do that. Bring the saturation down a little bit, and let's bring the blacks, and let's bring our dehaze tool. Just bring some of that contrast up just to show you how crazy we can get. All right, and we're gonna close that. And before and after, and that is literally just with one tool. It took all of maybe 10 seconds to do, and that's the select sky tool. So there is so much that you can actually do in here. I mean, you can, when you go into these features, there are options to allow you to intersect your mask. So you can intersect masks with your subject so that you have a more luminance range. You can affect just the highlights of, you know, let's say the tips of the mountains. So maybe we can try that with this luminance range. If we were to pull our shadows and our highlights down, you can see the parts of the image that are just being affected. And again, like these are features in the tools that I've played around with, but I'm not quite proficient in that part of it. But really, this tutorial was here to just show you the select subject and the select sky, and just how easy it can really be to start editing your photos in Lightroom using these masking properties. So that's it for me this evening. I really hope to be doing more of these formatted videos, a little more tutorial based, and some photo tips coming your way in the new year. Thank you to those who have subscribed. If you haven't already, click the like button below, leave us a little comment, let us know if you enjoy this kind of format, and subscribe to the channel. With that being said, we'll see you on the road, or in this case, we'll see you right here in the office.